Welcome to the Pirate People Podcast. It's a podcast for and about different people connected to North Central Missouri College and the Pirates. I am your host, Rick Cole of Pirates Digital Media. Our guest today is Amanda Sampsel, the Enrollment Marketing Specialist at North Central Missouri College, and we will visit with her in a moment. But first, a couple of notes about Pirates Digital Media. We're excited about the upcoming broadcast sports season on Pirates Digital Media. We've got a great crew, some young people that are very enthusiastic, and we'll tell you more about them as we go. But Pirates Digital Media is also the postseason championship telecaster for all Missouri junior colleges. Starting next Friday, the 27th, we'll have the Region 16 D1 Men's Soccer Championships as Crowder College hosts Jefferson College. Then the next day, Saturday the 28th, it's the Region 16 D2 Volleyball Championships from Metropolitan Community College. You can see both championship matches on the Region 16 website, njcaaregion16.org, or on piratesdigitalmedia.com. Speaking of basketball, our first basketball telecast of the season, a legitimate broadcast, is coming up on November 3rd. I say legitimate because we have a couple of games scheduled to check out some new equipment and new ways of doing things. We won't be actually announcing them, although we'll have the video. Check the schedule out at piratesdigitalmedia.com. It is posted now, and we will get started with basketball again on November 3rd. We also now syndicate our broadcasts from piratesdigitalmedia.com to our Pirates Digital Media Facebook page, Pirates Digital Media Live on YouTube, and on Instagram. And I've been saying this for a while now, but we're still kind of undecided whether or not to include X, the former Twitter, as a syndication site. Honestly, nobody has said anything one way or the other. I have kind of become less of a fan of Twitter, so I'm thinking about dropping it, but I don't know. Love to hear from you on that issue. As always, you can watch events on demand, of course, at piratesdigitalmedia.com. Well, it is time now for the Pirate People Podcast, and our guest today is Amanda Sampsel, who, if you decide to attend North Central Missouri College as a student, she may be the first person you meet when you visit campus. She joins us now on the Pirate People Podcast. Let's break things down and do the important things first, okay? Talk about your son a little bit. How's motherhood going, and how is Creed?
Creed is good. He is 4 months old, and this week is our 4-month appointment for his shots and everything to see how tall he is. Went to the doctor last week for some sickness, and he is 14 and a half pounds. And he loves everything. He loves daycare. He loves to watch the kids. They tell me every time he doesn't nap because he's too busy watching everybody. But he is growing like crazy. He looks just like his father. Nothing like me. He has...
Well, that's not a good thing.
No, he's got one dimple, and that's all that I apparently contributed besides carrying him, because he really looks like his father and even his uncle and his aunt. Nothing
My
like me.
experience is that can change.
Yeah.
From year to year, you go back and remember how you got yearly school pictures. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing.
He also has very red hair, and I don't have red hair. My husband has a red beard, but my mother-in-law is very redheaded, so he somehow ended up with red hair. That was like the one thing my husband is like.
Yeah.
He's not going to have red hair, and that was the first thing I asked when he was born. I was like, what color is his hair? And they're like, oh, it's red, and my husband could not believe it. And I was like, I called it in the daycare.
That skipped generations or something. It pops up at all the weird times.
Something, but the daycare he goes to, there is like 5 or 6 kids that all have red hair.
No
Like
kidding.
25% or more of that daycare are redheaded kids.
Wow.
Yeah, they sent me a picture yesterday of all of them, and yeah.
The Ginger Club?
Oh yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So everybody says that your life will change when you have your first child. How's that now after 4 months?
It's definitely changed, but I kind of wanted to have the aspect of going into motherhood of, everyone says your life does change, everything's going to be so different, but I wanted to adapt him into our life, into our schedule, into things we do, and so that was really the approach that I have had of, he goes to things that we've always gone to. Now, if it's too hot or too cold, obviously we don't go, but most of everything that we've done throughout our times of being together and throughout our lives, we have just adapted him. So we've went to football games and parades, and we are big lake people. My parents have a lake house at the Ozarks, and we like to go there. My stepbrother and Logan loved to ride the jet ski, so we've taken him there. I think his first lake trip, he was like 3 weeks old. So we just kind of adapted him into our lifestyle versus changing everything. Now, obviously my sleep is a little different and all of that, but he does really well for 4 months, but definitely different.
Because when I had my first child, I had a definite thing I wanted to teach that child. One thing was a basic tenet of everything we did, and that was I wanted that child to learn the word no. You know, no is sometimes a negative connotation, but when the kids are reaching for the hot pan on the stove and you say no, that was always the thing I looked for. Do you have anything like that? As you got into motherhood, you were thinking to yourself, sheesh, I'm going to teach this child French or, anything like that?
Definitely not French. He does go to daycare with some different kids that are from China, so I'm convinced he may be bilingual because they all speak very fluent Chinese. But I've always just kind of wanted to be able to teach him independence.
Yes.
I feel like growing up that my parents were you learn, but you have to be independent. Logan and his siblings were all very independent as well. Right. So I want him to be able to independently do things, independently play, not... Yes, I want him to rely on me for some things and for a certain amount of time, but I want him to feel comfortable to do things on his own as well. And I feel like going to daycare at such a young age, I didn't want him to go to daycare. Obviously, I would love to stay home, but I am happy he goes to daycare because that teaches a lot of independence, I think, and a lot of sociability? Sociability, yeah, I think socialization, I guess. Yeah. And that's something that I wanted him to have because I think that is a good kind of like format that you receive a lot of that, right. Especially the daycare he goes to, he receives a lot of different culture with the kids from different countries. And I mean, they love him every time they call him Baby Creed and Creed Man's mommy. That's what they call me when I get there. He's like, one of the little boys, he'll wait at the door and he's like, oh, there's Creed Man's mommy, and that's my name. But I swear he will learn Chinese. And
that's cool. Speaking of Creed, when I first heard that name, that you named him that, I'm thinking either like in the Rocky movies or the rock group Creed. Either one of those have any bearing on naming him Creed?
The first time that I heard the name Creed, my husband was like, yep, that's his name. And we weren't even pregnant yet, hadn't even conceived or anything. And he's like, has always said that's going to be his name. And I was like, that's a movie, isn't it? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, now I think about there's a football player, Creed, Creed Humphreys. Yeah, and so that's what I think about. But he's actually named after a gun. Creedmoor 6'5" is a gun, and it is kind of fitting because he was born on 6'5". So I mean, it did kind of work out. But yeah, Creedmoor is a gun, and my husband picked it because he's a big hunter, and at first I was like, oh, my child's named after a gun. That's great. But yeah, it is fitting with the name of the gun and everything. So, and if a lot of hunting people they're like, oh yeah, Creedmoor the gun, and I'm like.
So a lot of people know that.
Every once in a while we come across somebody that knows it, and I'm like, you're probably
when
first.
He has a child, that child will be a son of a gun.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your job here at North Central. How many years is this for you?
It will be 3 in January. I started as the admissions recruiter back in January of 21, and in May I transitioned into the Enrollment Marketing Specialist role when Megan Pester took over as the Director of Marketing and Admissions. Her previous job as the Marketing Specialist was transitioned into this one. And so I do a lot of work with Megan in the marketing. I've recently, in the past few months, taken over the social media here. I run the social media at the Savannah campus as well. And then I also handle all the large recruitment events on campus, the college fair, junior, senior event days, individual large groups from high schools that come. We started a new event, or I guess I started a new event last spring, and it was called Pirate Preview Day, and I had it again this semester, and I made it up. I had a similar event that I experienced at my previous institution as a student and a student worker, and it was basically the life of a student at that school, and I really liked it. And I was like, I want to have one here, but I want to put my own twist on it. But I think it's important for students to get to really experience what they're getting into, because I tell every student that comes to visit here, obviously I love North Central. I loved where I went to college. I spent 3 years there, and I worked there as a work study, and I worked there for a little bit as a full-time employee in the midst of COVID. And I mean, I loved it there, but I love it here for very similar reasons. But not every college is for every student. I toured multiple schools when I was looking at colleges when I was a senior, and I knew pretty quickly I didn't want to go to those schools. And I mean, I don't want students to force North Central upon themselves, and I don't want parents to either, because if you force it, you're gonna hate it here. Absolutely. And you're gonna leave or you're gonna drop out, and I'd rather you find the right place for you. And if it's here, great. If it's not, it's gonna be somewhere else, or maybe a military or completely different, you don't know. But I want students to have the opportunity to really see what the programs are about, especially before you dedicate all the time and study it is into being a student and a successful one.
Yeah, I like that. I like that transparency thing, and I think we're kind of in the business of helping kids, and by extension, helping parents make that decision. And so I would think they really appreciate your transparency on that.
And students, as they've transitioned into college, I've noticed parents are very involved with their students more so than they have been before. And I don't know if that is with COVID or just the generation that is coming to college, but you have to sell to the parents just as much. And students and parents both, they like the transparency, but they like things that are what they're used to. People don't like change. Right. Some people do, but very few are going to say, yeah, I love it, I want to change something every day. No, I hate change. It's something that I don't like. I don't feel like most people are like, yep, I'm going to change something every day. No, you don't want to do that. And
but gosh, in this world, things change so fast.
They do. And
well, take COVID. You mentioned that earlier. How have things changed since COVID? And you kind of came in the middle of that, didn't you?
I did. I started in the midst of all of that. When I started my building that I'm located in, they worked every other week in home and every other week in office. And I worked all the time in the office because I was at schools and helping with visits. So when I started, I met all these people. And then the next week I come back and I'm like, I don't know any of these people. I remember at that time I shared an office with Jenny, and the first week she wasn't there. So when I came back the next week, I was like, there's a random lady in my office. And really, I was the random lady in her office. But it was very weird to see how things were going. But I know for North Central, it really evolved things with the digital aspect of things. I know before, a lot of employees, if any, they didn't have laptops. And they have laptops now, and we have the capability to work from home and the flexibility. Now, at my previous institution, we were very digital. So, I mean, I was very used to that. Every student had iPads and everything, and we were given them when we started at the college, and they were nice. But for here, it really evolved students into learning how to rely more on technology and how to use ebooks and use emails. A lot of students, they don't want to email, they want to text. We have trouble with them checking their emails, but that whole transition of COVID really made students have to learn how to use it and use it properly, and not just rely on, oh, well, I'm going to see my teacher tomorrow. Well, in COVID, no, you didn't. So, I mean, it really, I think that was a positive thing for NCMC, because now we're equipped for if it happens again, or if something else was to happen, or you have a substance or situation that you're in the hospital, or you are at home or anything like that. Like, you're able to do your homework at home still and turn it in. And most of the time professors are very more understanding, and they're more willing to do hybrid classes if you need to for a limited period of time for whatever reason. And you can meet over Teams and things like that. Like Jane Meservey in the tutoring center, she has her tutoring hours here, but she also has them online. And so that's something we didn't have before COVID. You couldn't just, oh yeah, well, we can FaceTime on Teams. Well, you didn't have that before COVID, and now we do. And for students that are non-traditional that may not be able to make it here because they got to pick a kid up from school, she's available at night or a little later if they need it. So, I mean, it's really been a positive thing, and not here at NCMC.
And in Jane's case, I know she prefers to be contacted on Teams, so she can kind of bypass all the back emails, I guess.
Yeah.
But she has stated that several times.
And Teams is nice because it is kind of like a texting thing. And I will say, I've never had a student Teams me before in my life until a few weeks ago. And I was like, oh, who is this person that Teams me? And it was a student. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that they had it. But it's nice that they can Teams teachers and things like that, because they do get a quicker response. Typically, I feel like in a Teams versus a email, and vice versa, I feel like if I Teams a student, they're gonna text back on Teams a lot quicker than they're gonna log into an email. So
how about the kids these days? What are students looking for? What do they really find appealing about colleges in general, and specifically North Central?
I have learned that I feel like students don't want to sit in the classroom anymore. They want the hands-on. I think they don't want to sit and listen to a lecture, and students want to learn things with their hands. They want to be interactive, and I think that's a big drawing factor, especially like, for example, our education program. Within the first semester here, Cassie has them in an elementary, a middle school, and a high school, 10 hours each, and that class really can make or break a student if they want to be a teacher and what grade level they may want to teach. And our students in the nursing program, they're within the lab within a few weeks, if not sooner, of that program. And they're putting those skills to the actual test versus just reading about them. And that's what students want. And a lot of our ag programs, like, I feel like, and I've said this a few times, I think we could have easily done an ag program at Savannah because students want to get in there, get their hands on, and then get out into the workforce, especially with those more technical degrees that can be 2 years or whatever, and then go out into the workforce versus having to sit in a classroom for 4 years, whatever. Sure. Students don't want to do that. They want the degree, they want to get it, they want to go out and make the money.
And education is a great example that you use, because it used to be you go to school for 3 years, and then that fourth year, your senior year, you were doing your field experiences and student teaching and all that. That's how I was raised, but that was eons ago. So
no, that's how I have always thought of a teacher as well. Like, you go to school and then you do your student teaching. Yeah. You don't get in the classroom so quickly. And I mean, Cassie does a really good job of making sure students get in the classroom, and right. I mean, you have to work at it. I mean, she could easily say, no, we're not going to do that, but she wants her students to be able to make sure that's what they want to do. And I mean, a lot of students can quickly realize, I do not like elementary kids, or I don't want to do middle school, but I love high school. And I mean, I think that's a good way to know which degree path you really want to go, especially because now, when I was in high school and everything, this wasn't an option, but when you graduate high school, you can substitute teach.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to have the 60 college credit hours anymore to substitute teach. You just have to have the high school diploma. And I mean, students that want to be a teacher, that's a good way to get out there and see at what grade level you like while making pretty good money. I mean, some schools pay every bit of $90 to $100 a day. And I mean, that's nice when you're a college kid, or even me, I'm like, hey, that's not too bad of an idea. I mean, it's a lot of work, don't get me wrong, but they can kind of figure out what grade level they like. And sadly, nowadays, a lot of places are having such trouble finding teachers. A lot of students are able to start teaching earlier, and they're teaching and then gaining their certificate and degree while they're teaching, which it's good and bad. I mean, I hate it because of all these teachers have been getting burnt out, but it's awesome for these students that want to be teachers because they're getting immersed in the field so quickly.
Recruiting North Central's main campus versus recruiting for Savannah, is there a difference?
Yeah, I think so, and I find it really interesting. Sue or Shelly, or maybe both of them, said this when I was at Savannah. The vibe is different because students there are non-traditional typically. Some of them are traditional, don't get me wrong, but those students they're there to study, and they're there to learn and go home because they have kids or things like that. Now, here we have a little more fun because, I mean, we have more non-traditionals and more activities. Now, obviously, our students here are just as serious because of those programs are offered here as well, but they are different. I feel up there, we're giving students in that area an opportunity that maybe wouldn't go to college if NCMC wasn't there, because maybe Northwest or Missouri Western, it wasn't for them, or it was too big, or they weren't doing well in big class sizes, or they just weren't able to afford it financially, or the class schedules weren't working for them. Because like, we offer some nights classes, and we have overall 42% cost savings compared to other four-year colleges and universities in the state of Missouri, and that's without A+. And so our non-traditional students, that's giving them a good opportunity to continue their education or to build a different future for themselves than what they wanted. And I mean, I met with a mom that was here yesterday with her son, and she was telling me her daughter is a mom and works nights and weekends and stuff, but is in our nursing program at Savannah. And I mean, it's hard work to do that, but I mean, it's awesome because she said she wouldn't have gone to college or gone back to be a nurse if that wasn't an option, because she could have drove up here and applied for this program, obviously, but that's an extra 2 hours from where they live on the road every day, and trying to find childcare when our kid's not in school or daycare. I mean, that extra convenience of being right there, it makes a difference.
And I think the junior colleges now are starting to fill that kind of role, whether you're going junior colleges or community colleges or whatever, but it's an institution that's really filling a need, I think, right now.
I think so too, and I mean the Savannah community, they wanted NCMC. They're very supportive, and I think that makes a big difference of how supportive they are to how successful we are. I mean, Sue told me multiple times that they've already are growing in that building, and she's like, we could expand probably already, and I mean that's awesome. I mean, I love going over there because it's beautiful and it's a beautiful campus, but I mean it's awesome to see what has evolved in that community, because I mean I'm originally from the St. Joe area, and I mean I knew where Savannah was and everything, but I would have never imagined when I was in high school or growing up that there would be another college up there. And now I mean I maybe would have went to NCMC instead if it had been right there, because I didn't know about A+, and I was right there in Savannah's backyard, but I had no idea anything about it. And I think that also is creating a large awareness for students that are traditional, that is going to open doors for them as well.
You grew up in Gower, if I'm not mistaken. What was your school experience like?
I graduated with 56 in my graduating class, okay. So it was very small. When looking for a college, I wanted a small class size. Now my sister, we're 7 years apart, and she graduated same class size, similar to I did at Gower. She wanted a large class size. My sister went to Mizzou and she loved it. I would not have survived one day in a lecture hall at Mizzou, but that was not how I was, not me at all. But I graduated with that small class size, so I wanted a small class size. I went to Central Methodist. My class sizes there were 19-to-1-ish, which is basically what they are here. I mean, our class size ratio is 19-to-1 here, and I will say that is one thing that I will tell people. I didn't go to NCMC, but I went somewhere very similar, and students get that experience at NCMC that I got at Central Methodist, so I feel like I did go here. The faculty care here. They want their class sizes small so they can give you that one-on-one. I push a lot of students when they're interested in education. I always tell them, I'm like, which everyone loves Cassie, but I'm like, if you love Cassie and you like her teaching styles, there is a faculty at CMU who I know her personally, but I also know her from working as a student ambassador and everything like that at CMU. She's just like Cassie, and she's gonna make sure you succeed there as well. And I mean, it's a good transition, but having that similar class size from when I was in high school to college really made a difference. And same here. Like I always tell people, you graduate with 15 in your class or 40 or however many. Students that come here, they're used to those small class sizes, and the course load is changing, so it's nice to be able to keep the class sizes same in size as what you're used to, because that work's getting harder, and so it helps.
Central Methodist is interesting because they had a contingent that were at the Savannah opening. They're very involved with us here at North Central. Yes,
I saw that Rita Golstad was at the Savannah opening. I recognized her in the videos, and she is our provost at Central Methodist, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know her. And I thought it was really good to see that connection there between where I went and now, because we do the Teacher Energizer event over the summer here with CMU. Yes, and one of the faculties, I don't know if she was here this past summer because I was on maternity leave still, but last summer, the faculty that I tell a lot of people about that's very similar to Cassie, she was here doing a lecture, and I thought that was cool. I was like, I talk about you all the time with students about how, like, if they like how Cassie teaches and they like the connection, that you're the next step to stay in that. And I think it's really cool to see the connection between my alumni and here, because I miss CMU a lot because all my friends and everything, but right. It's so similar to here that it was a nice transition. And
Amanda, what led you to getting into college admissions recruiting? Is that a subset of what you thought you were going to do, or is it just something that opened itself to you?
I had no idea what I was going to do. I always tell students, this is another thing I'm very transparent about. My freshman year of college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought about psychology, I thought about nursing. I took A and P in high school, quickly realized nursing was not for me, and that was the last time I'd taken a science class. But when I got to my second semester, my freshman year, I took a public speaking class, and it was really funny because at the time I did not want to take it. I was like, oh heck no, I'm not talking in front of these strangers, and quickly realized I loved it. I could talk to anybody. Could probably talk your ear off all day, but my dad's the same way. And so I was like, I really like this class. I excelled in the class. And so I decided to study communications. I took advanced public speaking and everything at CMU, but during that time I was a student ambassador. I worked in the admissions office there as well. And so that kind of got my foot in the door of working in higher education, but also kind of seeing things a little in depth because I worked very closely with Dr. Parisi. He was the Vice President of Enrollment Management at CMU at the time. He's now the President of Missouri Valley, and he really helped me, and he did very well shape me into kind of figuring out what careers I wanted to do. He was always one of those, okay, what are we going to do next, or what is your plan? And Scott Queen, he worked at CMU as well, and he's also at Missouri Valley. He went with Joe, but he kind of got me into the marketing side of things because he let me help with stuff on the website. He let me upload photos and take different staff photos. I helped with marketing pieces. I have some material that is still in one of the CMU view books. So kind of my time at CMU really kind of helped me get where I am. Now, I did not plan to end up in it long term. I was like, I could see myself doing this, but I really had no idea, and I didn't expect to end up in this part of Missouri either. My husband's from Chillicothe area, so that's what led me up here. But at the time, if you'd asked me when I was going into college, I probably would have told you I had no idea, but I probably would have laughed if you said something about higher education, because at that time I'm like, no, I'm here to get a degree, run cross country, and other than that, I don't really know.
Right,
so.
Right. You mentioned earlier that you were kind of taking over the social media, and what challenges does that bring with it?
I love the social media aspect of my job because I love seeing my work out there. It is something I'm constantly looking at, and even though I've taken it over, Megan is still always looking at stuff, and we're always trying to figure out what's next and what works. And so we're always trying to figure out that next kind of what we're going to do ahead of time. And that is something like I do look at like what we've done in previous years and what worked and what hasn't worked, but I try and just make things that are as irrelevant to students as possible. I've really tried to transition our social media pages into student photos and pieces and things like that, because students and parents definitely want to see their students' photos. They love it, like, that's my son, and they share it, and then it goes on. And I mean, really focusing on that, but also my biggest struggle is always staying on top of what's happening, because things constantly change so much, and marketing changes so much, but so does social media, the fads. I mean, TikTok was really popular, and now I don't feel like it's as popular. And when I was in high school and growing up, Twitter, now X, was the big thing, and I never get on Twitter unless I'm on NCMC's Twitter.
Ask you, what's the hot thing right now, and what do you see in the future?
Instagram, I feel like, is still a solid, popular thing. And for this generation, the Instagram Reels are really popular. I mean, TikTok still is popular, I feel like, for certain things, but I've noticed our population being very popular on Instagram. Now, the older generations, grandma, grandpas, I feel like they're your Facebook. They look at the Facebook. So I try and keep stuff pretty on Facebook as well as Instagram, because grandparents like to see that. But
right. Do you feel comfortable on social media? Because there's a lot of negative connotations, and I think maybe X, the former Twitter, kind of led to that a little bit. Is it a safe way to go? I mean, in general, for kids.
I would love to get rid of social media. Like, if it wasn't my job, I would love to delete it.
I kind of feel that way too.
Like, I love looking at social media because I love seeing photos. Like, one of my best friends had a baby in February, and like, we send photos back and forth all the time. Yeah. But I love seeing her photos on social media and stuff as well. And especially one of my best friends, also, she lives in Dallas. She just got engaged and everything. And so like, I love to see her stuff. But if I could throw social media out the door, I would, because it portrays a lot of negative stuff. I mean, you see all the stories about in high school, in elementary kids, and all these issues of bullying or targeting or whatever, and the scamming and the scheming. And I mean, if it could be thrown out the door, it'd be great. It's my job. Yeah. So I can't. And Megan has said the same thing. Like, her daughter wants social media, and she's like, I tell her no. And she's like, I'd get rid of it too if I could. And I mean, I would love to throw it away, but it's our life, sadly.
What's good about it then? What do we get out of it other than connecting with, as you said, parents and grandparents and friends?
It's the way for information now. I don't know, and it sounds awful that I say this, but I don't watch the news. I look up articles and I see things on Facebook, and then I'm like, okay, if there's something that strikes my interest that's real world news, then I can go and research. But I think it's kind of a good like pointing direction to what's important at the time. And I mean, it is good information of what's going on besides just connecting with people. We post press releases about important things on campus. And I mean, it is a good view of still kind of connecting, but at the same time, it's a good information platform for those people that maybe don't want to read the newspaper or don't read the newspaper or watch the news or whatever. I mean, it's in our hand information. And I mean, I will say, yeah, a lot of people have smartphones they can read them on. But my grandma, she has a laptop, and my grandma's almost 80 years old, and she gets on Facebook and scrolls on her laptop all day long. But I mean, that's how she looks at a lot of news and stuff. And so, I mean, it's informative. It's sad that it's became how a lot of people get their information, whether it's true or not. It depends, but I wish we could go back to newspapers. I mean, I've never really read a newspaper before, but I mean, I could start.
You're feeling nostalgic for it.
Yeah, I mean, I used to, the funnies, I remember that.
Right.
But I mean, if we could go back to reading the newspaper and I still print photos off.
Right.
And things like that. Like, I can mail you photos instead of putting it on Instagram. Like, how about that? But I don't think.
Let's do some quick hitters here. I don't think I've ever done this before. I'm going to make you do it, though, if you don't mind. So 10 seconds or less on this topic, and we'll have several. What is the best part of your job? 10 seconds or less.
Interacting with students and seeing them on campus after they have toured and everything, because they remember me. There is a local girl here, and she remembered me from when I was pregnant. I gave her a tour, and now she works here in town, and I see her on campus. She smiles every time and says hi.
What is the highlight of your time here at North Central?
Pirate Preview Day has definitely been a really big highlight for me because I started it from scratch. It went from nothing to 2 events I've had now, and it was a big breaking point for me.
What is one thing that's in the back of your mind that you can't wait to try as far as North Central recruitment, I guess? Nothing back there you want to divulge?
We can come back to that one.
Okay. What is the future of Amanda? Where do you want to end up in this game, this life of education?
I want to keep growing. I currently have a bachelor's degree, and I said that I'd love to get my master's, and I would. It's on that radar. I'd love to do it. I'm just kind of waiting on life with my son to slow down a little bit. I know it never will, but I'd love to get my master's and continue to move up. I mean, I started as the recruiter, and I've transitioned in positions since then, so just continuing to build on the ladder.
And you want to take a run at that thing that's on the edge of your mind you can't wait to try?
What thing?
Oh, just do you have something that you really are thinking, I would like to do this someday in the future at North Central to help the cause?
I mean, I would really like to continue to expand on my Pirate Preview days. I mean, I told Megan yesterday, it stresses me out more than any other event, but because I have students in classes and things like that. And I mean, it's a big ask for me to ask professors and students if they'll let prospective students sit in on their class, but it really makes a difference. But I'd like to expand. I mean, I know nursing is a big stretch, but so many students I think would love to be able to get that experience. Normally I have them sit in an ag class. Jack was gone at an event yesterday, or when I had the event, and so it didn't happen. But I would love to be able to continue to offer that, or even have an ag-specific one. So just continuing to evolve with that event is really my hope, and hopefully have one at Savannah as well.
Thank you for joining us today on the Pirate People Podcast, a celebration of the different people connected to North Central Missouri College. And thanks today to Amanda Sampsel, the Enrollment Marketing Specialist at NCMC. I am Rick Cole of Pirates Digital Media. We say goodbye and go Pirates.